Hello, good afternoon, good evening for some of you who are joining us today. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our Revizto webinar today. What is new in Revizto? Well, we'll be exploring some of the fantastic new features that have recently been released in version 5.14 of Revizto. My name is Levi Brown. For those of you who don't know me, I am the territory manager for the UK and Ireland for Revizto, and I'm joined here today with James, who I'll let introduce himself in just a moment. So a little bit about me and my background. I'm a chartered engineer by trade, and recent employ has been with the likes of Leica Geosystems and Topcon. So very much a background in BIM and geospatial. So it's a pleasure to sort of host this webinar today. And I said I'll let James introduce himself in just a moment, but just a little bit of housekeeping before that. This is a webinar, so you'll notice your videos and your sound is off. Also, the chat function is disabled, but please feel free to use the Q&A box that we have available just to the bottom of your screen, usually next to your speaker and your audio settings. So we will have some time at the end of James's presentation for questions, and we'll go through those. We'll also be responding to questions as the webinar progresses, if that's easy. But yeah, I'd like to hand over to James and enjoy these fantastic new features that you're about to see. So enjoy.
Thanks, Levi. Thank you very much. So my name's James Lawrence, as it says across the top there. I've been with Revizto for 3 years now, so I'm lucky. I've seen Revizto go through many various different changes, and this one that I'm going to show to you today, probably next to Clash Automation, is the one that I'm the most excited about. A bit about myself. I'm the Customer Success Manager for Northern Europe and the Middle East. Bit of experience there on the right, worked for Balfour Beatty, where I actually took Revizto into the business. I've worked for Arup. Far too many more to list there. Probably be about 10, 15 more pages of the companies that I've worked for over the years. And I will be showcasing 5.14 on regular catch-up calls as well. So don't feel that you're missing out if we're trying to condense this into the time slot that we've got. We'll be having a lot more time to talk over this as well. So let's jump in. Let's get into 5.14. One of the things which has kind of elevated this release kind of above its parts is the fact that the CEO, Armin, has talked about this with an immense amount of passion. Anybody who may have seen snippets from RevUp and things like that will know that this release is a big one in the 2024 roadmap. We are now getting into the stage of releasing 2 major builds a year. And anybody who's been with Revizto for some time will know that the releases come from client feedback, customer feedback. You are our customers. We listen to you, and any features that you want to see in Revizto, speak to your customer success manager. He will then go through the correct channels, and if it adds a lot of value to Revizto, then more often than not, it will go through the development channels. So we're going to be talking about some high-ticket items today. The high-ticket items being AR, the custom statuses, and a bit on QR codes, and then I'll kind of jump into the software and show you some of the new kind of features. So to begin with, what we're going to be talking about at the start is the custom statuses. Now, there's some people on this call, I know for a fact, were asking me about custom statuses when I joined the company 3 years ago. But I think that's actually a good thing, that it shows the kind of quality assurance that Revizto puts into what we're putting out. We don't want to put something out that you base your workflow around and it doesn't quite work the way that it should. So I've played around with custom statuses, I've done my own, and I think it is going to completely change the game of how people use Revizto. We don't any longer have to stick with the opening, progress, solved, and closed. You can create a workflow which suits whatever it is that you want to see. And the best thing about this as well is that you're starting to bring in more of your design team. You can bring in commissioning, estimating, on-site, FM, soft landings, all this kind of cool stuff. Now, the custom statuses is obviously a Revizto Plus add-on, and it can only be done at admin level. So admins who are on the call today, don't worry, because your team can't go crazy, go around creating all these crazy custom workflows that, don't add a lot of value to the project. So it's from admin level only. So once you've downloaded 5.14, on your workspace, you will now see there is a new tab called Issue Workflows. Now, I've kept the standard workflow in there. The standard workflow is always going to be a part of Revizto, especially if you have issues pre-linked to the opening, progress, and solved. But as you can see, just playing around, I've managed to create some custom workflows around builders work openings. Opening required, resolved, and one for fire stopping. You can have specific issue types that are part of that, and a nice little emoji that basically insinuates what it may or may not be. The one that I'm going to kind of open up and have a look at today is the ductwork installation. So if I open up the ductwork installation and go to edit, you will see what the workflow looks like. So we have a name, we have a description. Resolved will be set to signed off, and opened will be set to ductwork review in terms of clashes. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be using clashes with this. It's there as almost like a buffer. So I went through and created custom statuses. Now, I haven't worked on a project in 3 years. I had to go on the Reba website to kind of go through some workflows which I was going to put in. I was going to do one around commissioning, but I tied myself up in knots. So I thought, let's keep it nice and simple. A nice, simple ductwork package review. So I'd have put in there, the ductwork review falls under the category of to-do. Access panel also falls under to-do. Modular is to do with tracking. So if you're doing on-site installation, and then if the actual ductwork package has been signed off, that then goes as completed. So instead of creating one from scratch, I'm giving you an idea of what it looks like, because we could be here for quite some time going through this, putting all these packages together. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to add one more status to this, which will then feed into something I'm going to talk about a bit later on in the webinar. So for the status this time, I'm going to create a new status, and I'm going to call this commissioning and add. The description here, I'm going to put in for duct work. Commissioning packages, and the category. So what does the category fall under? Is it to do? Is it for tracking? Or is it completed? Now I'm going to actually put this one down as to do. And then from here on, you can then select a color for this. So for this, what I could do is keep it green, as with everything else, or I could pick a new color, Revizto colors. I'm going to put this one as a blue and click add. And that's how easy it is to add statuses to your new custom workflow. By adding the commissioning one in the end now, I've added another layer to what we can do within the actual application itself. And I'll be coming onto that very, very shortly. The next high-ticket item, which is another really, really exciting one for me, which I want to talk about today, is the AR capabilities. Now, AR comes with a caveat, 2 caveats, in fact. The first one being, if you're out on site and you're going to be using the AR functionality, please do a risk assessment of the area that you're going to be working in. I'll give you a quick example. When I used AR for the first time at RevUp, I had the iPad up, I was looking around, I could see all the services that I want to, and there was a small moment where I actually panicked because I thought I was going to hit my head on the pipe. That pipe didn't exist, and I kind of had a whoa kind of moment there. Now, Revizto want you to do your risk assessment of the area that you're going to be walking around. Please make sure the floor is free from any tools. I don't want people falling over unistruts or hitting their feet on things which shouldn't be there. So make sure that the area is clean. The second thing to remember is please pick your battles of the areas that you're going to be scanning for AR. Now, I don't have a live site and a model that I could go through and do this, but luckily, my house modeling was done in Revit, pushed into Revizto. So it was an actual brilliant idea to do this because I have the model with me and I actually have the live environment downstairs. So I'm going to play a little video here and I'm going to be stopping it as I go through. So first thing, kind of align yourself with the area that you want to calibrate to. So pick a common point. More often than not, it's going to be a corner. When you hit the AR on the side tab, it gives you 3 modes to calibrate to. The recommended is calibrate by corner. You will scan the floor. The subsequent corners, Revizto will pick those up and give it a point. You can calibrate by the floor. And if you're feeling like a real maverick, you can open without calibration and kind of eyeball it. So with interlacing the AR, I found the corner and I'm using the kitchen island for this, and it's found that corner perfectly. However, there always may be a tiny little bit of a discrepancy between this. And what I'm doing now is I'm picking the corners in the model to calibrate to. Done. Now, as you can see, it's ever so slightly out. That's probably due to the size of the kitchen island that's in there. But what I can do is change it after the fact. By changing it about 50 millimeters, it's now over the top of the kitchen island unit that we have. And here I can change the transparency. And straight away, I'm seeing discrepancies in what's actually been installed out on site to what is in the model. So from here, I can go through and I can add my stamp, electrical stamp, putting it in there. And I'm saying that actually the socket's been modeled in the wrong place. It will take a snapshot. We're creating the issue and I can go back on to moving around the project. So nice, simple, concise title for this. Socket modeled in wrong location. The person who is doing the modeling can pick up on this, go through and basically move things to suit. So I'm moving around now. And the one thing that I haven't done is maybe look at the hidden items under the ceiling. So by selecting the ceiling, I can hide the ceiling and see that straight away, the lights in the model are modeled correctly with the containment. We have water pipe work going around as well. And by having the transparency fully on now, I can check the model, walk around, the double doors are in place, start changing the transparency as I go through. And then by going to the back of the kitchen, I can now see that we have pipe work going into a completely random area. So I'm going to hide some items to see if we actually have a manifold for the underfloor heating. Now, I can hear you asking, James, did your builders use this on the job? I'm going to say no, I wish they had, because it would have saved 18 months of unmitigated stress. Builders maybe using Revizto, NAR may have been like an alien language to them, so we had to stick to the traditional 2D with this. So again, going in, adding the stamp templates, which have already been predefined. It could be a custom workflow as well. I don't actually have the custom workflow set up on this job, but if you have those, you could take the drop down from standard issue, create a custom one, and all I'm doing up is marking up here where the placement needs to be for the underfloor heating manifold. I'm going to do a quick markup as well. And as you can see, the ease of use is what sets this apart from a lot of things. When I was talking about AR at RevUp, the amount of people that were just absolutely shocked at the ease of use of this was just blowing my mind. And I think this is one thing that people are really going to find is the biggest benefit is how easy this is to use. Once you've set it up, all you need to do is walk around. Everybody has the phone in the pocket. You can scan it as long as you have access to the model. So by simply finishing off now, I've done my review, checking the transparency, and I can move on to the next thing. Now, I said at the top to pick your battles of what it is that you're going to be scanning. The reason I say this is because if you scan a small room and you expect the entire building to be calibrated, it's not going to work that way. So that is why you want to pick something like a plant room, a riser cabinet, a switch room, maybe a corridor, but the further that you go away, you may start to see, we call it drifting. You may start to see there are little things in terms of drifting that happen again. So stick to the area that you are. Try not to walk off too far into the distance. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about as well, which is another major feature, is the QR code aspect of Revizto. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to come to my chiller, select my chiller, right click. And as you can see down at the bottom, I can now create a QR code of issues. I can create a QR code of elements as well. So for this, I'm simply going to generate a QR code of this chiller. And it comes in two formats. The first one, an A4, will be an A4 print off. The second one will be a sticker. You can focus on the object or basically just look at it in the current view. And you can select the object after reading the QR code or open the object properties. Now for this, all I'm simply going to do is save this as a PDF. It's going to save it as a PDF, and this is what our QR code looks like. So you can see it comes with a nice little funky Revizto logo in the middle. It gives the name of the item across the top, the location, the grids, and the room as well. Now, in true Blue Peter fashion, here's one that I did earlier. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to open up my phone app. Sorry, Zoom's really flagging today. So here we have my phone app. I'm now going to go to my camera. I'm going to scan. The QR code. Open in Revizto. And what now is going to happen is it's going to open the site app straight away on my phone. Sorry, this seems to be dragging quite a lot. There we go, we're getting there. So it's opening that model now. It's going to take me directly to the issue. I've opened up the models on there as well. And there we have our chiller automatically selected within the environment. So from this point on, what I can now do is I can select the item, look at the properties. I can now maybe see if I have any custom statuses applied to this, and I'm linking QR codes with the site. You can use the QR codes with everything from rooms to specific items to issues as well. But what I would say is that if you're going to be using the rooms, maybe break your rooms down into location or a specific type of room. Because if you have 400 rooms on the job and you're trying to create a QR code for every single one of those rooms, you're probably going to struggle ever so slightly because Revizto can't handle that amount of issues that have been generated to a QR code. So again, it's a case of picking your battles. Maybe do circulation spaces and things like that. The next thing that I want to show you again is another video. So one of the things that we've had a problem with over the years is what we call Z fighting. So if I just open up this video now, I have paid my internet bill, everybody. Just bear with me 1 second. So if you remember what Revizto used to look like. So I'm going to zoom to an area. I'm going to click down and walk through this area. And as you can see, we have what we call Z fighting on those floors. It almost looks as if there's an error in the modeling because those two items flickering against one another, and it can cause quite a few issues. People think it's graphical issues. It's just been the way that Unity has been built. And basically, it's one of those items that we've been trying to develop for some time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click back on home within the actual Revizto application, and I'm going to go to that exact point within the model and zoom in. Hit the walk command again. And now, once I walk through the exact same space, zero Z fighting, zero flickering. It's absolutely seamless. Such a brilliant, small little feature that is really, really going to help people throughout their day-to-day without thinking that there is something wrong with their model. So we're going to just change the walk sensitivity ever so slightly. And now once I walk through, absolutely no issues whatsoever. There are a few little things as well that we've added into here. Now I'm going to quickly go back to the workspace for the next aspect. So if I go back to the workspace and I go to my project team. Now, when I'm doing admin and project setup with people, I kind of stress that the metadata when giving somebody a role on a license is imperative because that then fed into the issue tracker filters. So you could then go through and create issue trackers by filters, by department, by location, if you so will. So as you can see here, these are all the people on my project automatically available. And you would have to use the filters to be able to see all this kind of cool stuff that we have within there. However, if I now go back to the Revizto application and go to the issue tracker, you can now see that all that metadata that we put onto the actual person itself is available. So David Gomez, he works for Revizto and he's in the BIM department. Abby Statham works for Revizto in sales and she's actually based out of the UAE. So again, instead of having to go through and use all the filters, you can simply see in the issue tracker who the role is, where they're from, what their department is. If it's of no use to you, move on to the next thing. One item of this development, which I kind of feel has gone a bit under the radar, but again, I think people are really going to get a lot of use out of this, is the batch search set creator. The batch search set creator is just a fantastic way of basically creating batch search sets, but also handing over the responsibility to design parties, consultancies, contractors to maybe work in their own silos, especially if they're using the Clash automation and you've given them access to use Clashes. Why don't you give them the opportunity to create their own search sets as quick as possible? So to do this, I'm going to select an item and look at the properties. And as you can see, I have every single line of data here. Now, I always stress in my training sessions that any data that is within Revizto, you can use to your benefit. Doesn't matter how small it is, how throwaway it is. If it's there, it's going to add value to your project. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to pick a system classification. And once I right click on this now, I can click batch create search sets. So once I batch create search sets, we have now another panel that comes up. And anybody that is familiar with creating search sets will kind of know what this looked like, especially if you're using the find object functionality. So the category is automatically generated because we select the supply air and the property is the system classification. So I'm going to create a brand new folder for this, and we're going to call this 5.14. And you can also give it a prefix. So this is what I meant by bringing subcontractors, consultancies, design houses in, because you can give them a prefix, it will automatically name their search sets, and then you're good to go. You can include the category name if you so require, and you can include the property name as well. But for the ease of use of this, I'm going to give it a prefix of 514. I'm then going to click on create. Now, it looks like nothing's happened because that's how quick it is. They're done. It's automatically generated. So now when I go to my search sets, we have a folder created for 514. Once I open that up, it's now broken the Revit systems down into their individual categories. Now, there is a small issue with this because the systems on this job haven't been properly defined. There's a lot which are contradicting. But if I just basically wanted to see a supply air system, I can simply double click, isolate out, and then I have my supply air system ductwork automatically predefined. So maybe from this point on, what I could do is, for my supply air ductwork, is go into my find objects. As you can see, I'm just going to clear this out. I could now add a condition from a search set, 514, supply air, select. And what I'm now going to do as well is I'm just going to go in and pick a random piece of ductwork. I'm going to pick this one here, and I'm going to add to current search. So we're looking for supply air on level 2, find all. It's found them. I can isolate that out. So now when I close off, we've found all our supply air ductwork by using a mixture of the batch create search sets, quick find all. So from this point on, what could I do from here? So I could go to my issues by going to a stamp. I could place a stamp, and I could go to design, and I'm just going to call this mechanical. I'm going to place that there. And remember, we set up these issue types. So I could go to my ductwork packages, and I'm going to set this to commissioning and OK. I'm just going to set this to none, and then I can go through and create all this information. So by simply linking a standard workflow, creating the batch search sets, selecting a level, having a view here with everything on there, I can go to the issue tracker now, and we now have a working view for our commissioning, which Enrico has to go and do. Let's give him a bit more flexibility here. I'm not going to expect anyone to do this in a month. Let's give him until May to do. Then I can review this in 3D, and I can go through, change the filters, change anything on and off that I so require, and basically work with all this information. A couple of changes to the issue clash automation as well. So again, one little thing, and it's funny, I've been getting a lot of emails about this over the past couple of weeks in terms of how to filter by zones and specific areas. It's really taking its time today. Sorry, there we go. We got there in the end. So I'm just going to buzz through now and do a very, very quick clash test. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and see if it reworks, because it is very, very laggy. 1 second, everybody. Sorry, I do apologize about this. I'm just going to stop sharing. Sorry, my computer has just frozen to a halt. I do apologize about this. So I'm going to create a new clash test. I'm going to go to my search sets, and I'm just gonna do something very generic here, like I always do. I'm going to do a category of structural framing, and I'm going to do it against my ductwork package. If I can find it, make ducts. There we go. And I'm just going to call this 5.14. And click on done. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this with everybody. I'm just going to skip through, basically hitting a cheat code to get to the end. We're going to do a hard clash. Once I get onto the next area, there we go. So I'm just going to add a basic grouping of level and room. I'm going to take off the proximity and click on next. Okay, so advanced automation. So now when I click on advanced automation, you will see that there is going to be a brand new panel appear in the top left-hand corner. filter by location. So now I can go to specific levels, specific rooms, or zones. So I'm going to go to my rooms, and I'm just going to search for anything which falls under plant. So I'm going to select all for plant and click OK. I'm going to add a default stamp onto this, and because we're doing structural against mechanical, we will go down to our structural and we'll go to S4 clash, which is going to Lewis, but I know Lewis isn't in, so I'm going to change this to Ahmed and click finish. So because we've automatically applied that filter, what I can actually do is run the class detection and sync with the issue tracker. So by doing this, it's basically going to generate, run the clash, and it's going to pick those issues that we've already predefined and put them into the plant rooms that we've already done. Now, I'm hoping there's not going to be too many for this. It's picking them through. It's all right. Yeah, it's finding quite a few, as I imagined it would. Structure against MEP is always the devil for this. So I'm hoping it. Yep, there we go. It's found, it's grouped, it's updated. It's running the advanced automation now. And as you can see, even though it's found all those clashes, it's only creating 6 issues out of every clash that it would have found, because we added the advanced automation filter. That is then allowing us to push those results through to the end result. So what I can now do is just hide my floating meeting controls again. There we go. If I go to my issue tracker now, I can go by my test, filter to 514, and there we have it automatically done. So Ahmed's got some work cut out against him here to go through and sort all these out. But you can see it's just another layer to class detection that we've never had before in terms of automatically filtering through, picking those items and having basically everything automated as much as you possibly can to get the end result. It's brilliant. Absolute lifesaver. A couple of things within the area as well that people may have picked up on, may have not. While we're kind of getting to grips with how we're going to work with the object tree moving forward, what we can now do is that we can collapse and expand all the models. Because we know that a lot of people that are working with Revizto work with NWDs and containers of models. And to be able to have that collapse all, expand all instantly in there straight away, again, bit of a lifesaver. Another thing that you can do within the object tree now is if I pick the MEP stage 4 and I pick the fire model, I can right click and I can transform multiple scenes together. Once a dialog box comes up, so I can take the origin and I can move it. I'm just going to move it a really silly number, 5,000 out of the way. And as you can see now, it's caused a lot of chaos because it's just taken that model and dropped it wherever it wants to based on the measurements that I've done. So I've moved it 50 meters from the origin point that we initially had. So I'm going to go back to my transform scene, put it back to its original number. Done. Sorry, I'm clicking far too fast today. 0. Okay. And that will drop them nicely back into place. Couple of things in terms of improving the graphics, which don't need to talk about today. But there's one more thing that I just kind of wanted to show you, just as a refresher, really, because I don't really see an awful lot of people using it on a day-to-day basis, but it's been improved. So why wouldn't you? So I'm just going to scroll through this area, come to this area here, and we now have, I'm just going to select 2 items to begin with. Right click, move objects temporarily. So I can move those objects temporarily. And as you can see now, we can move on the X, Y, and Z. We can rotate items as well. And we can actually put in the measurement of what we want. So I'm going to say if I move that 500 millimeters, as I did it wrong, so I'm going to have to go through and add a minus. So what will it look like to get this ductwork out of this wall? Because anybody who's been part of my training sessions know I always pick on this one area to say that it's something that we need to get resolved. So why don't we actually visualize what it looks like? Then from that point on, create an issue. This is going to be mechanical. So we're going to go to a mechanical modeling issue, place, and done. And again, you're helping somebody out to review this item and get this item fixed first time. If you can create an issue, place a stamp, give a measurement of how to go through and fix things. Same applies to a clash. Don't just say, by the way, go and fix this clash. You can say, if you move this piece of ductwork 500 millimeters this way, you're going to then miss the structural bracing. This area is going to be clash free. So that is basically most of the features that I wanted to talk about today. When you're speaking to your implementation manager, he or she will give you an update as to the new features as well and give you a bit more of a deeper dive, because I absolutely guarantee on all the calls that I'm going to be having moving forward, the big topic conversations are going to be around AR, QR, and the custom statuses as well. So thank you very much for listening. I'll hand back over to Levi and we'll take a few questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, James. It's very exciting to see, and well done for doing it live. We had one suggestion in the chat, which was to switch off your camera, but we've been and done that now. So
Oh, okay, yeah, good point. Sorry, guys.
no worries, that's all right. First question then. So this is with regards to the custom statuses. So can the new custom workflows, statuses, and issue type definitions be exported for use in other projects?
Good question. This
Very good
did come up
question.
yesterday. So if I go to my issue workflows, let's say, for example, where are we? You can import from another workflow. I will have to come back to you on project to project. As I'm aware so far, I think the answer is no. I will have to come back to that. Who asked the question on that, Levi?
So that's Ronan Collins. So
Ronan, I know Ronan. So yeah, Ronan, I will ask the question if it can go from project to project. I think the answer is no so far, but I know it's definitely been asked internally already. So I will find out and drop you a message on LinkedIn.
So another one from Ronan. In this case, with regards to the QR codes, so are the PDF files saved and attached to the elements within Revizto for easy retrieval later?
Right. Okay. So no. The question for that is that you download the physical PDF of the QR code to your machine. Obviously, the key with that is if that you're out on site, you print that code off, you laminate it, put it on a door, and it's basically almost like obviously you can create a QR code for issues in a specific room. So when you scan it, it pulls up all those issues. So it's not an actual physical element within the Revizto platform. It's more of a generation that you download to your machine, print it off, do what you want to do with it, take it out on site, and then you have that link on the site app by scanning the QR code, and it brings up however or whatever you generated your QR code around.
Fantastic. And I think that almost answers the follow-on question to that. So do we have a filter then which identifies which elements have QR codes been generated from? And obviously, because the QR codes are not attached to the individual elements and are saved offline at the moment, no, we do not.
No,
But,
but good feedback. A
very
really
good.
good question. Obviously, if you're going through and you may be doing a custom workflow with commissioning and you want to make sure that all the ball valves in a plant room are commissioned, it's a good question, because how would you know which has been done and what hasn't? So aside from having a sticker on the physical item, that good question. So no, we'll take all this feedback on board, and we'll feed that back to the development team. So yeah, as of now,
Absolutely.
yeah, no, but again, we'll take this feedback away. Thank you.
And another fantastic piece of feedback was from Dave Donaldson. He asked if it's possible to change the Revizto logo in the center of the QR codes at the moment, so to perhaps clients. I thought that was a brilliant idea.
That's a great idea. Again, one we're gonna have to take away. I hope we're taking notes for this, Levi.
Yes, definitely.
No, I thought it was a really cool little feature, but no, to have a client logo, that's awesome. That's a really good good one on that, David. And yeah, we'll badger Reese for that, because yeah, he's he's like a dog with a rag. So yeah, he'll get that one. So for you.
And one from Mike. So I assume you can create a QR code stamp and then take that PDF and add it into the model.
Yes, you could, but that obviously has to come from. So you could either upload. So what you could do is, if I was to, oh, it's working like a dream now. Obviously, now I've stopped talking. You could maybe, for example, let's say, for example, I will pick. Oh, sorry, I'm still in temporary move. I could come out for that for starters. I could pick 1, 2, 3. I could go to my stamps, multi-stamp, and let's do one for asset maintenance. I'm going to create those 3 stamps. We've created those 3 stamps. I'm just going to reset my filter. I'm going to go and multi-edit the issues. 1, 2, 3. And again, little trick here people may not have seen. Multi-edit issues, edit. I can now attach a file to all these. So when I go to my downloads, presentations, 514 webinar, sticky QR code, upload, apply. It's now going to upload those changes, and it's added that QR code to that item within Revizto itself. So I think that's what you meant, Mike. I'm hoping that's what you meant, because obviously if you were to do it a different way, it would be a case of trying to get that QR code into a Revit model to put onto a family to bring into Revizto. So this would probably be the best way to do it. If you want to get that QR code physically back into Revizto, is actually physically upload it and attach it to that issue. So when I click on, double click, it's now going to open that for me straight away.
Michael, he was coming from the point of view as well about maybe creating a stamp called QR code or something similar like that.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Yeah. The same thing applies. If you were to create a stamp specific for QR codes and add that QR code, upload it to whatever it is, and yeah, that works perfectly. It's a really good idea again.
Brilliant. So another one here, can we save the temporary moves for future reference? And that's kind of a yes or no, a yes and no.
So you're right, it is a yes and no. So obviously, if you were to do a temporary move, is this one that I put onto you, Levi? There you go. So it saves a snapshot of it. So when I go back into the 3D now, because I've reset that back to normal, it's always going to go back to the way it was. So it saves it by a markup, basically. It is the only real answer to that. Because obviously you're moving something temporarily in that feature. If you want to go back into the real world, you have to turn it off. So obviously that's the reason behind that. That's the reason behind taking the snapshot when you create the stamp or the issue from it as well. So you do have that historical log, just not the actual physical 3D historical log. It'll be more in a markup functionality.
Perfect. The last question, I'm not sure, without creating an issue or applying a stamp, I think that's a thread. So you can create a workflow with 2 statuses, to be tagged and tagged. When the QR code is put on the same equipment on site, the site team can scan the code, change the status to tagged, and the workflow is done. That's kind of a less of a question and more of a workflow. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, exactly the same. And I just want to kind of say to people, not so much as a closing statement, but this is the first release of this. So the QR codes, the custom statuses, we want you to go away and play around with them as much as you can. Tell us what you think works, what doesn't work. And obviously that's why we have this open loop of communication and feedback, because you may see something that doesn't quite work the way that you want it to. Come tell me, Peter, John, anybody in Europe. We will take this feedback on board and say, actually, contractor A is using it for this way. Is there any small improvements that we can make on this? And hopefully it's a yes. So everything that I've showed you so far is 5.14 as it stands. But as you well know, we improve on build upon build. So there may be like a patch build coming because there's always little bugs and features and things like that. But obviously we don't want to have that. So maybe by 5.15 at the end of the year, when the permissions and the 2D workflows are coming in, the QR and the custom statuses maybe something like on steroids. It's exactly what you want to see. So we want you to play around with it at the minute, take notes, give that feedback to your implementation customer service, and we will then feedback at that into the development team.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, James. Oh, there was one more.
Okay.
After a clash test, we're receiving clash reviews. If I need to export all clash locations, X, Y, and Z, to software such as Civil 3D or Revit with specific marks, how can we do that?
Right. Okay. So you would have to. Right. Okay. 1 second. You put me on the spot.
I think this is probably less of a 5.1.14 question and more of a general use of clash automation. So I actually suggest we take this one offline, Bilal, and we organize something to.
Yeah. Obviously, if you want to. Obviously, the clash is done in Revizto. If obviously you want to get those clashes back into like Revit, you have to use the switchback functionality as well. So instead of going back into Revit and looking at a clashed model, you're looking at those individual ones. So it's all about, again, I've used the term a few times today, picking your battles. Which ones is it that you want to get resolved? So we'll take it offline, and you know, if we want to jump on a call, we can go through this as well, instead of show people are wanting to finish the meal deals and or whatever it is that they're having. So yeah, we can all go on with our day. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, James. I wondered if it was worthwhile just popping up our details again before we close out. So for the likes of that last question in particular, by all means, feel free to reach out to either myself and or James. We're just going to pop our details back up now for those very specific questions. Most of you, will already dealt with us, or at least your local Revizto representative, who will be able to answer any further questions as well. So whilst we wait for that to load up
during the end of this call, it's the same. What did they say? Don't work with animals and children. It's like sometimes don't work with live software in a webinar.
Live
Absolutely nothing's worked for me today. It's always the way it goes. Right, here we go.
But whilst we wait for that to load, really appreciate you guys attending today, and hopefully you found some
there we
really
go.
cool hints
Finally
and
got
tips.
it. So yeah. So yeah, just for me as well. Thank you everybody for attending. Please feel free to contact us directly by email. We'll pick this up, and again, please just go away and test it to breaking point. See how far you can push these new features as well. Again, with the AR, please be aware that if you're out on site, do your due diligence, risk assess where you are. Maybe do it with a partner as well, so they can kind of look out far ahead of you, because the last thing that we want is to be on Construction Inquirer because something terrible's happened, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. And obviously we're bringing all this new cool technology into construction as well, and it does come with that caveat that please carry out a risk assessment beforehand. Thank you.
We're making the recording available after this as well, aren't we, James?
We are, yes. So I think you'll get an automated link if you signed up.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your days and afternoons.
Thanks, sir. Take care.